What if I told you that time doesn't move forward? That the past isn't behind you, the future isn't ahead, and the present isn't the fleeting moment we think it is? What if I told you that everything, past, present, and future, exists at the same time? Right now, as you sit here, listening to these words, there are infinite versions of you experiencing infinite realities. The version of you that took a different path, the version that made a different choice, the version that already has everything you desire. And yet, you are here. But why this version? Why this reality? Why does your life look the way it does, and not any of the countless other possibilities? The answer lies in something we've been conditioned to ignore: the illusion of time. From the moment we are born, we are taught that time is linear. We see clocks ticking, calendars changing, days turning into nights, and we assume we are moving in one direction, from past to future, from childhood to old age. But physics tells a different story. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity shattered the idea of absolute time. It revealed that time bends, stretches, and even stops depending on the observer. To a photon traveling at the speed of light, time doesn't exist at all. It experiences everything, instantly. And then there's the block universe theory, a radical idea that suggests time doesn't flow, but instead all moments exist simultaneously, like frames in a film reel. Past, present, and future are not separate events. They are simply points in a vast, unchanging structure. This means that your past is still happening. Your future is already there. And you are just experiencing one slice of an infinite existence. But if all versions of reality exist at once, what determines which one you experience? You do. Everything in the universe vibrates at a frequency, including you. Your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, they are not just mental states, but frequencies that align you with different realities. The choices you make, the beliefs you hold, the energy you emit, these are not just influencing your future. They are tuning you into a specific version of reality. Quantum mechanics has already shown us that observation changes reality. In the famous double-slit experiment, a particle exists in multiple states at once until it is observed. The moment you look at it, the wave of possibilities collapses into a single outcome. Now think about that on a larger scale. Your reality is a quantum wave of possibilities, and your consciousness is the observer. Every time you focus on something, whether it's fear, doubt, success, or joy, you collapse the wave into a reality that matches that vibration. This is why two people can live completely different experiences in the same world. One sees opportunity, another sees limitation. One experiences abundance, another experiences lack. They are not just thinking differently, they are living in different versions of reality. And this is where the greatest secret lies. You are not stuck in one timeline. You are shifting between them constantly. Have you ever had a moment where your life suddenly changed? A decision that led you down a path you never expected? A chance encounter that altered your entire direction? Maybe you call it coincidence, maybe fate. But what if it was something else? What if at that moment, you had unknowingly shifted timelines? Every choice, every thought, every emotion, these are the levers that move you between different realities. The version of you that is healthier, wealthier, more fulfilled already exists. The reality where you've broken free from limitations, where you've achieved everything you desire, is already happening. But here's the catch. You can only experience the reality you are in vibrational harmony with. This is why people stay trapped in cycles, reliving the same struggles, attracting the same problems, seeing the same patterns repeat. Not because they are stuck, but because they are unconsciously aligning with the same timeline over and over again. But the moment you become aware of this, everything changes. This is not just philosophy. It is science. It is quantum mechanics. It is metaphysics, and more than anything, it is power. Because once you understand that time is not what you thought, once you realize that every possibility already exists, once you see that your reality is a reflection of your consciousness, you are no longer a prisoner of time. You are the architect of it. So the question is no longer, what will my future look like? The question is, which future will I choose to step into? If every possible version of reality already exists, then why do we only experience this one? Why does it feel like we are bound to a single timeline, moving from past to future with no way to escape? Because we have been conditioned to believe that reality is something fixed, something external, something happening to us. But the truth is, reality is fluid. It is not something you are stuck in. It is something you are constantly shifting through. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you. And what you perceive as a single unfolding story is actually just one frequency among infinite possibilities, a signal your consciousness is tuned into. Imagine every version of your life, every choice, every possible outcome already exists, stacked on top of each other like radio waves. Right now, at this very moment, there is a version of you that made a different decision yesterday, a version of you that never met the people in your life today, a version of you that already has everything you desire. These realities are not far away. They are here. They are happening right now. The only reason you are not experiencing them is because your consciousness is locked onto this particular timeline. But what if you could change the station? What if you could shift your awareness, tune into a different version of reality, and step into the life you were meant to have? This isn't just theory. It isn't just philosophy. Science has already proven that reality is not as solid as we think. In the quantum world, a particle doesn't exist in a single state. It exists in all states at once, until it is observed. Your consciousness acts as that observer. The moment you focus on a possibility, you pull it from the wave of infinite potentials and collapse it into something real. This is not speculation. This is the fundamental nature of reality. And if this applies to particles, then why wouldn't it apply to you? If your focus determines which version of reality becomes solid, then what happens when you shift your focus? What happens when you change your beliefs, when you change your thoughts, when you change your emotional state? You shift, not metaphorically, literally. You step into a version of reality that already existed but was previously out of reach, simply because you weren't tuned into it. This is why people who radically change their mindset also radically change their lives. This is why those who expect failure seem to attract it again and again. This is why some people rise out of impossible circumstances while others remain trapped in the same cycles. They are not just taking action, they are aligning with a different version of reality. And you are shifting all the time. Every thought, every decision, every moment is moving you toward a different timeline. The only question is, are you shifting unconsciously, reacting to whatever life throws at you? Or are you shifting deliberately, choosing the reality you want to step into? Because once you understand that time is not what you think, once you realize that all realities already exist, once you see that you are the selector of your own experience, then suddenly you are no longer waiting for life to change. You are changing life itself. Time is nothing more than a reference system. We experience time as something absolute, something that moves forward, dragging us with it, 1 second at a time. We structure our entire existence around it, counting the hours, the days, the years, measuring everything from birth to death with this invisible force we assume is universal. But time, as we perceive it, is nothing more than a counting system, a construct designed to create order, not a fundamental law of reality. Because the truth is, time is not a force, nor a flow. It is simply a point of reference. And the only reason we all seem to exist within the same shared reality is because we are collectively synchronized by this illusion of time. Imagine a world where no one kept track of time, where there were no clocks, no calendars, no records of what happened when. Would time still exist? Would you still experience it in the same way? Or would you simply exist, moment to moment, without any sense of being bound to a linear sequence? This is the fundamental truth that modern physics is starting to unravel. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity shattered the idea of a universal now. It showed that time is not a fixed progression, but something that bends and shifts depending on speed, gravity, and perception. An astronaut traveling at near light speed would experience time more slowly than someone on Earth. To them, only a few days might pass while back on Earth, years could go by. This isn't science fiction, it's a proven fact. Time is relative. But if time can change depending on the observer, then how can it be real in the way we've always assumed? Because time, as we know it, is not reality. It is an agreement. Every conscious being is an observer of reality. And if every mind were perceiving time differently, if there was no shared reference point, our collective experience would fracture. Some would perceive reality as moving faster, others slower. Some might experience one sequence of events, while others experience something completely different. In a way, we would all be living in our own isolated timelines. But that's not what happens. Instead, we are all synchronized by a universal illusion, a collective counting system that keeps our minds aligned. We all agree that a second is a second, an hour is an hour. We follow the same clocks, the same calendars, the same reference points, so that our individual perceptions remain connected within the same version of reality. Think of it like a multiplayer video game. Every player is experiencing their own version of the game, but they are all connected to the same server, which keeps everything synchronized. If one player moves, the system updates everyone else's reality so they see the same change. That server in our world is the construct of time. Without this synchronization, every mind would drift into its own isolated version of reality, experiencing events in a completely different sequence. In a way, time is like a script that all of humanity is reading at the same pace. But here's the thing. Just because we have all agreed to follow this system does not mean it is real. What happens when you stop following time? What happens when you step outside of this structure, when you stop defining your existence by clocks and calendars? For some, this happens naturally. People who spend extended periods in deep meditation, sensory deprivation, or complete isolation often lose all sense of time. Hours feel like minutes, or minutes feel like days. The mind detaches from the shared illusion, and suddenly, time becomes meaningless. There are even moments in everyday life when this happens to all of us. Have you ever been so absorbed in something? Art, music, a conversation, a moment of pure focus, that time seemed to vanish? Or the opposite? Have you ever been in extreme danger or in a deeply emotional experience where seconds stretched into eternity? These experiences are glimpses of the truth. Time is not something that moves around you. It is something your mind creates. And if time is just a mental construct, if it is just a reference system we all agree to follow, then that means something extraordinary. You are not truly bound by it. You are free to step outside of it, free to move beyond the illusion, free to experience reality in a way most people never will. Because once you stop seeing time as something you are trapped in, you begin to see it as something you can shape, manipulate, and transcend. The illusion of time is so deeply ingrained in us that we rarely stop to question it. But once you do, once you start peeling back the layers, you begin to see that what you call time is nothing more than a construct, an agreement between minds that allows us to share a collective experience. It is not a force of nature. It is a reference system, a way of measuring change. And if it is a reference system, then what happens when you step outside of it? Imagine you are in a dream. Inside the dream, everything feels real. There is movement, there is a past, a present, and a future. You feel like you are experiencing time. But the moment you wake up, you realize something strange. What felt like hours in the dream was only a few minutes in reality. Time did not pass inside the dream. It was generated by your mind. Now consider this. What if waking life is no different? What if time, as you experience it, is not something external, but something your mind creates to make sense of reality? Just like the dream, time in waking life is relative to the observer. This is not just a thought experiment. This is what physics tells us. Time slows down near black holes. Time stretches when you move close to the speed of light. Time, as Einstein showed, is not separate from space, but woven into it, meaning it is not an independent force, but a relationship between movement, perception, and energy. But here is where things get even stranger. If time is just a measurement of change, and if all possible changes already exist, then the idea of a past leading to a future is an illusion. There is no past behind you. There is no future ahead of you. There is only an infinite field of possibilities, and your consciousness is selecting one version of it to experience at any given moment. Just like flipping through the pages of a book, the story is already written. You are just choosing which page to read. And this is where the illusion of time is most powerful, because it synchronizes all minds into a shared experience. Imagine billions of people, all experiencing their own versions of reality, their own timelines, their own dreams. Without a common reference point, there would be no shared experience. You could live your entire life in a reality where time moves faster while someone else perceives it slower. There would be no way to interact, no way to agree on what happened when, no way to create history, society, or structure. So we created a system. We counted the rising and setting of the sun. We divided the movement of the earth into seconds, minutes, and hours. We built clocks, calendars, records of events. And in doing so, we locked ourselves into a collective illusion, a version of reality where we all agree that time moves forward at the same speed for everyone. But just because we agreed to it does not mean it is real. Time is not something moving forward. Time is not something outside of you. Time is the framework that keeps our collective perception aligned. It keeps our experiences connected, our memories structured, our interactions synchronized. And yet, there are cracks in the illusion. Have you ever had a moment where time seemed to slow down? A second stretching into eternity? A feeling that everything around you has frozen? Or the opposite, where hours pass in the blink of an eye, where time disappears completely, and you step out of the sequence for a moment. These are glimpses of what lies beyond the illusion. Moments when your consciousness detaches from the reference system, when you experience reality outside of the programmed timeline. And the more you become aware of this, the more you realize that you are not just inside time, you are shaping it. Because if time is a reference system, then that means you are free to move beyond it. So now you see it. Time is not an arrow. It is not a river, nor a ticking clock pulling you forward against your will. Time is a structure of the mind, a reference system that connects all consciousness into a shared illusion. But the moment you understand this, the question is no longer, what is time? The question is, what do you do with this knowledge? Because if time is not fixed, if all possible realities exist at once, then that means the future is not something you must wait for. It is something you can step into. This is not just philosophy. This is physics. Quantum mechanics has already proven that observation determines reality, that particles exist in a wave of infinite possibilities until they are observed. The moment attention is placed on them, the wave collapses and a single version of reality becomes real. But who is the observer? You are. Which means the reality you experience, the timeline you are in, the events that unfold around you, they are being chosen moment by moment by your perception, your expectations, your beliefs. You are not moving toward a future that is waiting for you. You are choosing which future you step into. The problem is, most people choose unconsciously. They carry the past into the present, assuming that the future will be just another extension of what has already been. They live in a loop, reinforcing the same patterns, aligning themselves with the same outcomes. They believe time is something external, something they have no control over. But the moment you break that illusion, the moment you realize that time is something that bends to your perception, you become the architect of your own experience. So how do you shift timelines? How do you align with a reality where everything unfolds in your favor? It begins with awareness. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is like a tuning fork, resonating at a specific frequency. And that frequency determines which version of reality you experience. If you are constantly focused on what is lacking, on what is wrong, on what you fear, then you are aligning with a reality where those things continue to exist. But the moment you shift your attention, the moment you start expecting a different outcome, feeling the emotions of that outcome before it arrives, acting as if you are already the version of yourself that exists in that desired reality, you tune into it. Because the future is not something ahead of you. It is something happening now, in another layer of reality, waiting for you to step into it. This is why great thinkers, visionaries, and creators throughout history have all shared a common truth, that the key to changing reality is first changing yourself. Not because you are manifesting something from nothing, but because you are shifting your consciousness to a timeline where it already exists. This is why some people rise against all odds, as if they have rewritten their destiny. This is why those who live in fear seem to attract more things to fear. This is why time itself bends for those who understand it, why they seem to be in the right place at the right time, why they experience synchronicities, why they step into opportunities that appear almost as if by magic. But it is not magic. It is simply the nature of reality.